So are high house prices in the GTA driven by too much demand, or are we just not building enough houses? I'm going to try to tackle that question in today's video. My name is John Pasalis, president at Realosophy Realty. You can get all my latest writings on the GTA's housing market at movesmartly.com. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest videos. So this question about are high house prices in Toronto really driven by too much demand or something on the demand side, or are we just not building enough homes, is something that constantly comes up. The one side, sort of the supply side argument, a lot of times is driven by builders and realtors and even some banks who tends to believe that the only problem in the housing market is that we're just not building enough houses. And if we just remove these supply side frictions, make housing construction, more elastic, which means that we can just build more rapidly and quickly to sort of meet the needs of the demand side, then we'll reach this utopia where everybody could afford their single family home and house prices won't be rising rapidly. And of course, there are a lot of challenges with that assumption and that theory that don't really hold up. And we're going to kind of look at one of the reasons, or some of the reasons, why the supply side argument is a little bit more nuanced than just simply we need to keep building more. And why sort of what we're building and who it's for actually matters quite a bit. So when we look at the supply side of the GTA's housing market over the past 20 years, what we've been building, the types of homes we've been building. In the first 10 years of the 2000s, the GTA was predominantly building houses. These are sort of low-rise, detached, semi-row houses, and significantly fewer condominiums. Whereas in the past 10 years, what has happened is we've actually built 90,000 fewer low-rise homes, and most of that gap has actually been made up by condominiums. So we're building much more condominiums today and significantly fewer low-rise houses. So why is this a problem? Well, when we think about the areas that have seen the most rapid acceleration in house prices, it's been in low-rise houses, because that's predominantly what we're not building enough of. We're not building enough 3-bedroom family-sized homes. We're building far more condominiums today, and condominiums tend to be much smaller in terms of average square footage size. But not only are condominiums actually smaller, when we look at who's buying and who's living in condominiums, the majority of condominium completions today are actually not intended to be lived in by the people who own them. They're actually being used as rental properties. And this is basically one of the trends we're seeing in the GTA. So what has happened in the past 10 years is we're proportionately building fewer homes that are intended to be used by homeowners and home occupiers. We're building more properties intended to be purchased by investors to be used as rentals. There are pros and cons to this. I mean, on the positive side, it has kept rents relatively balanced because we've supplied the rental market. But the negative, of course, it has helped inflate house prices because we're just not building enough family-sized properties. And we can kind of see this trend when we look at how house prices and how rents have changed over the past 10 years. House prices have doubled in the past 10 years, and whereas average rents have actually only gone up about 30%. And there are a couple of reasons for this. I mean, one of the reasons that house prices have doubled is due to sort of the fact that we're not building enough family-sized homes, but also because in the past 5 or 6 years, the GTA has had this massive immigration boom. Immigration has been significantly higher between 2015 and 2020 than it was in the previous 5 and 10 years. And with all of these new immigrants moving to the GTA, we just don't have the supply, and this is the truth on the supply side, to accommodate this surge in demand. But the supply side constraint, again, tends to be on family-sized properties more so than small rental properties. So when we think about that. Now, when we think about sort of the rate of growth in house prices versus rents, I was speaking with a professor a little while ago at Rotman, who made the points to me that when supply is truly your fundamental constraint in your market, house prices and rents should be rising at a relatively similar rate. And the reality is that they're not in the GTA. I mean, house prices, of course, are rising much more rapidly. And that's because our rental market right now is relatively well supplied. Our market intended to be used by end users and homeowners is not. So when we move forward, the solution isn't just simply build more properties, because if we keep building proportionally more condominiums in the next decade, we're actually just going to continue the trend we've been on, which is more rapidly rising house prices, more modest rents, because if we're building proportionally more condominiums, we're building proportionally more condominiums that are intended to be used as rentals. We're building fewer family-sized properties. So, the solution on the supply side is very complicated, but we need to move to a market where we're building the type of housing, ideally that homeowners and families are going to need tomorrow, and filling the rental gap, ideally with purpose-built rentals, not just condominiums, which the GTA is starting to see more of. We're starting to see far more purpose-built construction. So I hope that helps kind of clarify some of the balance and tensions between the supply and demand side, and why the reality is it's always a combination of both that are pushing house prices up higher. There isn't just one silver bullet, despite what anyone says. I mean, it's always a combination of both the demand and supply side being out of balance. If you have any questions, please post them below or send me an email at askjohn@movesmartly.com.